1,000 Miles Up the Nile, Section 26. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. 1,000 Miles Up the Nile by Amelia B. Edwards. Chapter 9, Thebes to Assuan, Part 2. The temple is dedicated to Khnum or Kneph, the soul of the world, whom we now see for the first time. He is ram-headed and holds in his hand the Anka, or emblem of life. Another new acquaintance is Bes, the grotesque god of mirth and jollity. Two singular little erections built between the columns to the right and left of the steps next attract our attention. They are like stone sentry boxes. Each is in itself complete, with roof, sculptured cornice, doorway, and, if I remember rightly, a small square window in the side. The inscriptions upon two similar structures in the portico at Edfu show that the right-hand closet contains the sacred books belonging to the temple, while in the closet to the left of the main entrance the king underwent the ceremony of purification. It may, therefore, be taken for granted that these at Esna were erected for the same purpose. And now we look around for the next hall, and look in vain. The doorway which should lead to it is walled up. The portico was excavated by Muhammad Ali in 1842, not in any spirit of antiquarian zeal, but in order to provide a safe underground magazine for gunpowder. Up to that time, as may be seen by one of the illustrations to Wilkinson's Thebes and General View of Egypt, the interior was choked to within a few feet of the capitals of the columns, and used as a cotton store. Of the rest of the building nothing is known, nothing is visible. It is as large, probably, as Dendera or Edfu, and in as perfect preservation. So, at least, says local tradition, but not even local tradition can point to what extent it lies under the foundations of the modern houses that swarm about its roof. An inscription first observed by Champollion states that the sanctuary was built by Thutmose III. Is that antique sanctuary still there? Has the temple grown, step by step, under the hands of successive kings, as at Luxor? Or has it been re-edified ab ovo, as at Dendera? These are puzzling questions, only to be resolved by the demolition of a quarter of the town. Meanwhile, what treasures of sculptured history, what pictured chambers, what buried bronzes and statues may here wait the pick of the excavator? All next day, while the men were baking, the writer sat in a corner of the outer passage and sketched the portico of the temple. The sun rose upon the one horizon and set upon the other before that drawing was finished, yet for scarcely more than an hour did it light up the front of the temple. At about 9:30 a.m. it first caught the stone fillet at the angle. Then, one by one, each massy capital became outlined with a thin streak of gold. As this streak widened, the cornice took fire, and presently the whole stood out in light against the sky. Slowly then, but quite perceptibly, the sun travelled across the narrow space overhead. The shadows became vertical, the light changed sides, and by 10 o'clock there was shade for the remainder of the day. Towards noon, however, the sun being then at its highest and the air transfused with light, the inner columns, swallowed up till now in darkness, became illuminated with a wonderful reflected light, and glowed out from the gloom like pillars of fire. Never go on shore without an escort is one of the rules of Nile life, and Salome has by this time become my exclusive property. He is a native of Assuan, young, active, intelligent, full of fun, hot-tempered withal, and as thorough a gentleman as I have ever had the pleasure of knowing. For a sample of his good breeding, take this day at Esna, a day which he might have idled away in the bazaars and cafes, and which it must have been dull work to spend cooped up between a mud wall and an outlandish berba built by the jinns who reigned before Adam. Yet Salome betrays no discontent. Curled up in a shady corner, he watches me like a dog, is ready with an umbrella as soon as the sun comes round, and replenishes a water bottle or holds a colour box as deftly as though he had been to the manor born. At 1 o'clock arrives my luncheon, enshrined in a pagoda of plates. Being too busy to leave off work, however, I put the pagoda aside, and dispatched Salome to the market to buy himself some dinner, For which purpose, wishing to do the thing handsomely, I present him with the magnificent sum of 2 silver piastres, or about 5 pence English. With this he contrives to purchase 3 or 4 cakes of flabby native bread, a black-looking rissole of chopped meat and vegetables, and about a pint of dried dates. Knowing this to be a better dinner than my friend gets every day, knowing also that our sailors habitually eat at noon, I am surprised to see him leave these dainties untasted. In vain I say Bismillah, in the name of God, pressing him to eat in vocabulary phrases eked out with expressive pantomime. He laughs, shakes his head, and, asking permission to smoke a cigarette, protests he is not hungry. Thus 3 more hours go by. Accustomed to long fasting and absorbed in my sketch, I forget all about the pagoda, and it is past 4 o'clock, when I at length set to work to repair tissue at the briefest possible cost of time and daylight. And now the faithful Salome falls to with an energy that causes the cakes, the rissole, the dates to vanish as if by magic. Of what remains from my luncheon he also disposes in a trice. Never, unless in a pantomime, have I seen mortal man display so prodigious an appetite. I made Ptolemy scold him by and by for this piece of voluntary starvation. By my prophet, said he, am I a pig or a dog that I should eat when the cit was fasting? It was at Esna, by the way, that hitherto undiscovered curiosity, an ancient Egyptian coin, was offered to me for sale. The finder was digging for niter, and turned it up at an immense depth below the mounds on the outskirts of the town. He volunteered to show the precise spot, and told his artless tale with childlike simplicity. Unfortunately, however, for the authenticity of this remarkable relic, it bore, together with the familiar profile of George IV, a superscription of its modest value, which was precisely 1 farthing. On another occasion, when we were making our long stay at Luxor, a coloured glass button of honest Birmingham make was brought to the boat by a fellah who swore that he himself found it upon a mummy in the tombs of the queens at Karnak Marais. The same man came to my tent one day while I was sketching, bringing with him a string of more than doubtful scarabs, all veritable antiques, of course, and backed up with undeniable pedigrees. La la, no, no. Bring me no more antiques, I said, gravely. They are old and worn out, and cost much money. Have you no imitation scarabs, new and serviceable, that one might wear without the fear of breaking them? These are imitations, O Cit, was the ready answer. But you told me a moment ago they were genuine antiques. That was because I thought the Cit wanted to buy antiques, he said, quite shamelessly. See now, I said, if you are capable of selling me new things for old, how can I be sure you would not sell me old things for new? To this he replied by declaring that he had made the scarabs himself. Then, fearing I should not believe him, he pulled a scrap of coarse paper from his bosom, borrowed one of my pencils, and drew an asp, an ibis, and some other common hieroglyphic forms with tolerable dexterity. Now you believe? He asked triumphantly. I see that you can make birds and snakes, I replied, but that neither proves you can cut scarabs, nor that these scarabs are new. Nay, Cit, I made them with these hands. I made them but the other day. By Allah, they cannot be newer. Here Ptolemy interposed. In that case, he said, they are too new, and will crack before a month is over. The Cit would do better to buy some that are well seasoned. Our honest fellow touched his brow and breast. Now, in strict truth, O dragoman, he said, with an air of the most engaging candour, these scarabs were made at the time of the inundation. They are new, but not too new. They are thoroughly seasoned. If they crack, you shall denounce me to the governor, and I will eat stick for them. Now it has always seemed to me that the most curious feature in this little scene was the extraordinary simplicity of the Arab. With all his cunning, with all his disposition to cheat, he suffered himself to be turned inside out as unsuspiciously as a baby. It never occurred to him that his untruthfulness was being put to the test, or that he was committing himself more and more deeply with every word he uttered. The fact is, however, that the fellah is half a savage. Notwithstanding his mendicity, and it must be owned that he is the most brilliant liar under heaven, He remains a singularly transparent piece of humanity, easily amused, easily deceived, easily angered, easily pacified. He steals a little, cheats a little, lies a great deal, but on the other hand he is patient, hospitable, affectionate, trustful. He suspects no malice, and bears none. He commits no great crimes. He is incapable of revenge. In short, his good points outnumber his bad ones, and what man or nation need hope for a much better character? To generalize in this way may seem like presumption on the part of a passing stranger, yet it is more excusable as regards Egypt than it would be of any other equally accessible country. In Europe, and indeed in most parts of the East, one sees too little of the people to be able to form an opinion about them, but it is not so on the Nile. Cut off from hotels, from railways, from Europeanized cities, you are brought into continual intercourse with natives. The sick who come to you for medicines, the country gentlemen and government officials who visit you on board your boat and entertain you on shore, your guides, your donkey boys, the very dealers who live by cheating you, furnish endless studies of character, and teach you more of Egyptian life than all the books of Nile travel that were ever written. Then your crew, part Arab, part Nubian, are a little world in themselves. One man was born a slave, and will carry the dealer's brand marks to his grave. Another has 2 children in Miss Whatley's school at Cairo. A third is just married, and has left his young wife sick at home. She may be dead by the time he gets back, and he will hear no news of her meanwhile. So with them all. Each has his simple story, a story in which the local oppressor, the dreaded conscription, and the still more dreaded corvée form the leading incidents. The poor fellows are ready enough to pour out their hopes, their wrongs, their sorrows. Through sympathy with these, one comes to know the men, and through the men the nation. For the life of the Beled repeals itself with but little variation wherever the Nile flows and the Khedive rules. The characters are the same, the incidents are the same. It is only the mise en scène which varies. End of section 26.